Score more with the college-branded Venmo debit card and earn up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash. Got paid back? With the Venmo debit card, you can instantly access your balance and spend on what you want, like game day snacks, gear, tickets, and more. The more you do, the more cash back you can earn. Plus, there's no monthly fee or minimum balance. Sign up now at Venmo.com/collegecard. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. Select schools available. Venmo Stash terms and exclusions apply at venmo.me/stash terms. Max $100 cash back per month.
For the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan, Capitol Bureau Chief and host of Under the Dome. You're listening to our latest episode for the week of February 17th, 2025. My guest today, I'm excited, I'm joined by the new Commissioner of Labor, Republican Luke Farley, our first Sitting Council State member on the show for 2025. So thanks for being on.
Dawn, thanks for having me.
We are in the Labor Building, which is, my personal opinion, the coolest architectural building that faces the Capitol. It's the brick building on, actually, what are we on, Edenton Street?
West Edenton.
Okay. So Farley is new to the job. He defeated, in the primary, kind of the bigger news was John Hardister, who is a House member. Our legislative listeners who are familiar with him, Farley beat him in the primary, and then went on to win the general and had the endorsement of the, quote, elevator queen, Cherie Berry, the former labor commissioner. So tell me first, how did you get her endorsement? How long had you known her?
So not very much at all before I asked for the endorsement. I was new to politics. I did not really know how important endorsements were, but it did dawn on me that the best endorsement you could have for this office is our longest serving and first female labor commissioner. And so I asked somebody to help me track down Commissioner Berry's phone number, and I called her and we talked. And I think my vision for the office aligned with the things she was trying to accomplish when she was labor commissioner. And so we became friends. She became a mentor and ultimately endorsed me in the race. And as a new candidate, that was huge at the time because in politics, I was unknown. And it instantly gave the campaign credibility because nobody knows the job of labor commissioner better than Cherie Berry because she did it longer than anybody else ever has.
Right. Why did you decide to get into politics?
Well, one of the things that really drove me was thinking about my kids. North Carolina for me has been a place of endless opportunity. I could get a good education, start a career, own a home, get married, have a family, all of those things, the things people call the American dream. I like to call it the North Carolina dream. But I worried whether it would stay that way for my kids. There's a lot of competition, both regionally, nationally, and globally for good economic opportunities in this state. And I really worried, would it be the same for my kids in 20, 25 years? And I decided you can't just stay up at night thinking about these things if you have some way that you can contribute, because to me, it's good policy that makes those opportunities, right? They don't just sort of happen on their own. They're the result of good policy and smart government. And so I decided I thought I had a skill set related to the things the Labor Department does, and that I would try to put those skills I'd picked up in the private sector to the benefit of the whole state.
You're the youngest member of the Council of State, as you noted in that first meeting, so 39, so almost in the over 40s segment with the rest. I think overall...
Still a young professional for a few more months.
Council of State got probably a little bit younger with some of the people, and then maybe not those that have been the longer serving. I won't say who they are. People can figure that out. So you grew up, you're talking about growing up in North Carolina. Tell us about where you're from.
So I grew up in eastern North Carolina, Onslow County, the Sneads Ferry and Topsail Island area. So that is about as extreme eastern North Carolina as it gets. It was a fantastic place to grow up. I just think about the landscape down there. It's flat, it's full of pine trees, and the soil is sandy. And when I see that, I think of home. But more to it, Onslow County is a place that really values faith, family, and freedom. The Marine Corps base, Camp Lejeune, is located there. So it's a patriotic place. It's a place of hardworking people. And it really sort of shaped my worldview to have grown up there because, of course, those are things that I value, too. And growing up there really instilled those values in me.
Now that you've been, 2 or no, a month and a half on the job.
Month and a half on the job.
So things you campaigned on, talking about hiring more, elevator inspectors, be a right to work state, not having COVID mandates, all of those things. Now that you're in the job, what have you seen that is really what you've heard from your, upwards of or close to 400 employees in Department of Labor? Where do you see the needs are and what you want to focus on these next few months?
Well, let me zoom out first. Let me say I love this job. This is the best job I have ever had, because every day I get to get up and I'm only focused on one thing, which is doing the things I promised people I would do. I had been in the private practice of law before this, and you get up and you got a lot of focuses. You got to get your work done. You got to get your motions filed. You got to generate new clients, and on all of those things. Now, all I do is get up and think about the things that you just talked about, and how do I accomplish those things, because that's what I promised people I was going to do. And so we have been focused on those things since I got in office. You mentioned the vacancies. It is hard for us to do our job if we don't have a fully staffed department. We have both elevator inspector vacancies that need to be filled, but maybe even more importantly than that, we have workplace safety inspector vacancies that need to be filled. It's hard to keep the workers of North Carolina safe if we don't have enough inspectors. And so we immediately started getting to work on that. We are seeking a 10% pay raise for those inspectors. I come out of the private sector, and if there are vacancies that are sitting open for a long period of time, the first thing you have to ask yourself is, are the pay and benefits competitive with the market? There are other considerations that people have for taking a job, but that's the first. And so we were laser focused on that. And in fact, we're focused on implementing our whole 3-point plan to improve worker safety in North Carolina. One is to fill the inspector vacancy so that we can properly have the compliance side. But we also want to cut wait times for our educational programs. We're seeking additional positions for that. And then expand our recognition programs, because I think you build safe workplaces, and I know this from my professional experience before I came to the department, with sort of a 3-pronged approach. You cite the people who are doing bad, you educate the people who are doing better, and you recognize the people who have in fact done right by their employees. And so we are focused heavily on that. We have budget requests in for that. And then we're working on other things. We're working on elevator modernization. Everybody gets on an elevator and sees a certificate that's 1, 2, sometimes 3 years out of date. Not only does it undermine people's confidence in the safety of the elevator, I think it undermines confidence in government overall. Because if we can't get something like elevator inspections right, what else can the government not do? So
if Cherie Berry's photo is still in the elevator, and that's several years
that is
out.
what I tell people. I say, I do not recommend riding Cherie Berry elevators, but there are not many out there. But I will say to your listeners, if you see a Cherie Berry picture in an elevator, I would love for you to tweet that picture to me at Luke Farley NC. So if anybody sees a Cherie Berry picture, I would love to know about it, because those are pretty old, and we will get on those right away. But just modernizing those elevators, making sure that they're inspected annually, and restoring people's confidence in our ability to do that job.
So people see, like, that was something you talked about, like how, and you use the phrase "make elevators great again."
Right.
So, which obviously, is a Trump slogan, but not the elevator part. How do you think, what you've seen so far at the federal level, and does that any impact on the state level with your agency as far as what's going on with Trump's series of directives and the federal workforce issues that are happening?
Well, I certainly think President Trump is setting the tone from Washington about what people expect. And I do think November was a change election, and people had certain expectations. On our end, you see DOJ at the federal level and things like that. On our end, we are trying to respond to that by making sure government responds efficiently, that we perform the services that we've been tasked to perform in a timely manner, that people are in the office working. And so that tone that's being set from Washington is definitely filtering down to us in a good way.
What do you all have for remote work? I know post-COVID, it was kind of by agency, by department, as far as things were allowed. What's the Department of Labor set up with where people work?
So there are some positions that are truly remote workers because they work in the field all the time. our elevator inspectors do not work out of an office because they are out in the field inspecting elevators. They basically have a mobile office. Their vehicle has, a desk and a printer and all of that. And so that's pre-COVID. That's going to continue because just as a practical matter, they don't need to be in their office. They need to be out inspecting your elevator. And that's true for some other safety inspectors as well. But we are doing sort of a top-to-bottom review of HR policies in the department, including work-from-home policies, because I do think the taxpayers expect us to be in this office. You need to be here and ready to answer your phone when a citizen calls, because we get a lot of that here, right? I mean, there are the things we actually do in this department, and there are things people imagine that we do, and they call the labor department for anything that seems labor-related. And even if it's something we don't do, we try to help those constituents and get them to the places they need to go and the resources they need. And so you got to be in the office to do that.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about agency policy with the DEI change that you made, and a win for a question you raised at your first Council of State meeting, and then our picks for Headliner of the Week. We'll be right back.
So good, so good, so good.
New spring arrivals are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Get ready to save big with up to 60% off Rag & Bone, Marc Jacobs, Free People, and more.
How did I not know Rack has Adidas?
Because there's always something new.
Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
It's crunch time at work, and you need to bring wings to your workday. Visit redbull.com/gettingitdone and answer a couple questions about your work style to get a Spotify customized playlist tuned to your productivity. Plus, score a can of Red Bull on us while you go from to-do to done. And remember, Red Bull gives you wings. Supplies are limited. Terms apply. Visit the website for more information.
You're listening to Under the Dome. I'm Capitol Bureau Chief Dawn Vaughan, here with Labor Commissioner Luke Farley. Right before the break, we were talking about some agency policy, and you came out maybe in the first couple of weeks of office, both you and new State Auditor Dave Bullock, about wanting to look at, change any DEI policies within your department. So what exactly does that mean?
So part of what you do when you take over an agency is review all sorts of things that the agency has going on, including its HR policies. And in doing that, as part of just sort of naturally taking over the agency, I realized that we did have some DEI metrics for evaluating employees. And I decided that we're going to be a department that's focused on merit, and we were going to use something else. And that's kind of the important thing here that I think there's been a lot of stories about getting rid of DEI at the Department of Labor. But I think the thing that's really significant is we've replaced DEI with a different metric. And so we replaced it with safety and health, which to me is really significant because half of the work of the department relates to workplace safety. And so we are now holding ourselves to the same standard that we expect of the employers in this state that we regulate. So we've gotten rid of DEI, but replaced it with something that is actually relevant to the work of the department and holding ourselves, like I say, to the same standards we expect of others.
Did that mean that is it just how you look at recruiting, or did anybody lose their job or part of like their workload or anything like that?
No, it manifested itself in this department mostly in the form of just employee evaluations as a metric for whether you're doing your job the right way. And again, I would say the real metric we want for employees here is safety and health, not DEI.
Do you still, is ensuring, the workforce to reflect what the demographics of the state are, if that's who you're representing? So how do you are you going to look at that overall, or are you going to sort of assume that that'll, end up playing out without having something specific, or what's your approach to that, I guess?
First and foremost, I'm focused on making sure we have the best and most qualified employees. So much of what we do at this department is a matter of life and death. Workplace safety. Are you going to, come home safe at the end of the workday because the workplace safety regulations are in place? Our elevators, are they safe to ride on? Amusement rides, the Department of Labor inspects those. These are the rides that, I put my own kids on. And so first and foremost, for all of those jobs, I want the most qualified people to do it. And whoever they are, we want them here at the Department of Labor, protecting North Carolina's workers, protecting North Carolina's children.
any state employees that are listening to this, I'm sure like their ears perked up at the 10% raise that you're asking for.
Right.
So that's up to the General Assembly, or is there some, I mean, as far as salaries go, is it like the very specific laid out raise that you'd want in the budget for them? Or are there funds within the agency that you could, have some sort of balance on raises?
So it will require legislative action. And I know 10% is a big ask, but again, these jobs are matters of life and death. It is worth investing in the safety of North Carolina's workers so that we get the best and most qualified people to be inspectors.
So I'm sure you're familiar with the state budget process, and maybe it'll happen this summer. And I think we're at the optimistic stage
Yes.
of just at the beginning.
We have made the ask. We don't control exactly where it goes, but we are following through on what we said during the campaign, that we would be seeking appropriate raises for the inspectors. So fingers crossed that others want to make that investment too.
So I saw you were recording this on Thursday. I ran into you in the legislative snack bar on Wednesday. So maybe were you over there asking already for budget asks, or?
No, I was over there just visiting some friends.
Okay. So as I've asked other people have been on, what's your order? Do you have a favorite thing over there to eat?
So I was invited to Fried Chicken Tuesday, and I have to say it was the best fried chicken I have ever had. Especially it was like $5.60 or something, and it was incredible. But I also realized the salad bar is incredibly cheap. Like if you go to a salad bar at Whole Foods or something, I don't know what it is, like $10 a pound or something. Over there, it's like $3.60 a pound. So it's like, I think I can justify eating salad.
I concur on the fried chicken. I think everybody, that's just to use a Council of State word, which will segue to our next topic about Council of State meetings. But I think concurrence on the fried chicken is pretty much a given. Almost you like it too much, I think.
Yes.
Because I'll get it every time and then want to take a nap after, really. All right. Well, Council of State, so the first meeting was February. It was that there was no Council of State in January. And you brought up people that aren't familiar with Council of State. It's the 10 statewide elected officials. Of course, Labor Commissioner Farley is on there, the Governor, Attorney General. It's a long list. And not all states have this exact makeup, but you meet generally once a month, and the actual work that the Council of State does, it's some property matters, usually minor things. There'll be concurrence votes on major things, like during COVID, some executive orders, that sort of thing, which caused some rifts among the people on it. But generally, and I wrote about in the Governor newsletter last week, it's this time for each statewide official to kind of give an update to everyone else and their agency and that sort of thing. And the very first meeting, it had come out that Governor Stein only wanted 6 meetings a year. So you brought that up, and then now we're back to 12. So tell us how that played out, what your conversation with Stein was like.
Well, first I'll say when I took this office, I understood they were monthly meetings, and then some information came out saying they were cut to 6. And when I read that, I immediately had a problem with it because I know the Council of State's doing a lot of important things. And it especially bugged me when I realized that part of what we're doing is related to Helene recovery. At that meeting that we had, I guess a week and a half ago, we were approving about $3 million of disbursements of insurance proceeds for damage to universities out in western North Carolina due to Helene. And I just said, why would we not have done this sooner? I feel like I was elected to work. It's more than just ribbon cuttings and things like that. There's real work to get done. And when I saw that we were cutting that work in half, I just had a problem with it. And so I raised it at the Council of State. As you note, the governor has gone back to 12 meetings, and I appreciate that. I raised the concern. He heard that concern. And to me, that bodes very well for our working relationship together. I've never worked with the governor. He doesn't know me. I don't know him. And so it takes a while, I think, for people to get used to each other. But I think it bodes very well that he heard what we had to say and went back to a regular meeting schedule. And so I appreciate him hearing us on that.
And Auditor Bullock has had, of course, the bill that was vetoed by Cooper and overridden is now law. Bullock has more Board of Elections power and some other things with Auditor. he had a lot of questions during that meeting, and Insurance Commissioner Kazi had quipped that former Treasurer Folwell was usually the questioner, and now it's others, and it's good to see how things end up changing because of those discussions, and of course the public gets to see it, and the press on our we sit on the perimeter of the conference room over at DOT, also on the Capitol grounds to talk about our location. All right, we are running out of time, so I'm going to move on to our picks for headliner of the week. I'll go first. Mine is about the legislative action this week. The Senate had its first actual votes. There's a healthcare mandates bill. You can read my colleagues' coverage of that in the News and Observer. What stood out to me is they were also the sponsors, but 3 Democrats in the Senate voted for it. Former Democratic leader Dan Blue, Senator Paul Lowe, and Senator Gladys Robinson. And it's a little bit different than what we've seen, where especially on the Republicans in the House and definitely in the Senate, that everyone will want to vote together. There's been some shakeup in the Democratic caucus. Senator Sidney Batch is now the Democratic leader. It had been Blue forever. He's the first Black House Speaker. He's been in both chambers for a long time. It actually has built, the way you were talking about seeing people regularly and working with them, Blue and Senate Leader Berger have had a long-time relationship. And so we'll be watching kind of the dynamic of how that changes and how there might be different voting factions in the caucus. So that's my headliner. What is your headliner of the week?
Well, I guess my headliner of the week is the elevator in the Department of Labor, because I have been asked a million times since I took office, when am I going to finally get around to changing out the elevator certificates with my picture on it, and we finally got around to doing it this week. So at the moment, as far as I know, it is the one and only elevator in the state with my picture, but those will start getting changed out over time.
Seems like it should definitely be the first one that you change.
Oh, it was sort of the most convenient to do.
Right, exactly. All right, I'd like to thank Labor Commissioner Luke Farley for being on Under the Dome. When I asked him to do this, he was already a listener, so that was great. Thanks for being a listener too.
Long-time listener, first-time interviewee.
All right, we will have you back again soon. All right, for the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan, for producer Laura Brache. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
For more from our politics team, subscribe to the News and Observer at newsobserver.com/subscribe, and sign up for our weekly political newsletter, also called Under the Dome, at newsobserver.com/newsletters. Thanks for listening.